I'm going to graph a negative trig function. So I've written down the a is 2 and the b is also 2 in this case. A is always a positive value because it's an amplitude, which is a distance, and a distance is always positive. So whenever I ask you about the amplitude, just always think it's positive. Okay, if I want to find the intervals where my 4 stops are going to be, I need to figure out what the period is. And the period is equal to the 2 pi over b. So that would be 2 pi over 2, which is pi. So what that means is in one full rotation, we'll stop at pi. What the 2 here means, this 2, is telling me that in 2 pi, I'm going to have 2 full cycles. I'll have 2 full sine cycles in 2 pi. All right, so if I'm going to figure out what my intervals are, I know that a full cycle is going to end in pi, so that's my last interval. I'm going to stop at pi, and then I'm going to start all over again. Okay, my first stop is going to be pi over 4, because I'm always going to do pi divided by 4, which is what that is. Or I can do pi, whatever the period is times 1/4. My second interval is I'm going to take that pi over 4, because I'm going to go up by pi over 4 every time and multiply it by 2, which is going to give me pi over 2. Okay, then I'm going to take that pi over 4 again, and I'm going to multiply it by 3, because it's going to go up by pi over 4 every time. So that gives me 3 pi over 4. Okay, so notice I kept using this value over and over again. Okay, and that's because it went up by that amount every single time. So those are my intervals. All right, and so I'm going to mark off my intervals. So what I do is I know I'm going to stop at pi. That's my first stop. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in between. Halfway in between is where my one interval is going to be. So halfway in between, I'm going to go right about here. Okay, then I'm going to go in between those two. So in between those two is probably going to be about here and about here somewhere. Okay, and I'm just eyeballing it. It's not going to be perfect, but that's about where my stops are going to be. Now I'm going to plot my points, and it's negative, which means I'm going to go down instead of up for my sine curve. Sine curve, I always start at 0, 0 unless I'm adding or subtracting, and in this case I am adding. So I'm actually going to start at 1. Okay, then I'm going to use the sine curve. Normally I go up, then down, down, up, but now I'm going to go down, then up, up, down. So I'm going to go down, and the amplitude here is how many units I'm going to go down. Okay, so from 1, where I'm starting, to the first slash here, I'm going to go down 2. So I'm going to have a point here. And then I'm going to go back up 2 to the next slash. Okay, I'm going to go up 2 to the next slash, which is over here, this slash. All right, so up 2 would bring me right back to where I was a minute ago. And then I'm going up 2 again to the next slash that I put off, and then I'm back down 2. Oh, did I go up? I went up 1. Okay, sorry. So I'm going to go down 2, up 2, and then up 2, up 2, and then back down 2 to right about there. And I would do that whole thing all over again. So I'm going to go down 2, and again my slashes, let's see, my slashes are here, here, about. So I'm going to go down 2, up 2, up 2, back down 2. Okay, so that's my sine curve from 0 to 2 pi. And if you see, that's 2 full sine curves in the 2 pi zone. So there's 2 curves here in that 2 pi zone. All right, if I'm going to go the other direction with this and go a negative way, again, I'm going to slash off. I know I'm going to end at pi, so I'm going to slash off. Halfway in between is like here. Halfway in between is probably over here and over here somewhere. And then I'm going to do the same thing. Now, when I go this way, I'm not going to go down because that wouldn't be continuous. So I'm going to go up 2 from this point, to the first slot. So I'm going to go up 2, and then I'm going to go down 2, down 2, and then back up 2. And that would be one cycle of my negative side. Okay, and then that would repeat. So that is what a negative sine curve would do. Again, I went down first instead of up. All right, I'm going to graph a negative cosine curve. Let's see, the A is 1. If I ask you about the amplitude is always a positive value. Even though it's a negative here, the amplitude is actually 2. Okay, and the B is 1/2. The B tells me how much of a cycle of cosine curve I would have in 2 pi. So in 2 pi, I would only see half of the cosine curve. Okay, this +1 tells me I'm going to push the graph up 1 from where I start. All right, so we need to find the intervals, which means I need to use find the period. So the period is 2 pi over b. All right, so that would be 2 pi over 1/2, which really just means 2 pi divided by 1/2, which means 2 pi times 2, keep, change, flip, which is 4 pi. Okay, so my full cycle will take me to 4 pi. So that will be the full cosine curve, the down, down, up, up. In this case, it's negative, so it would be up, up, down, down. So it would take me to 4 pi. All right, so if I want to find each interval, this one's a little easier to figure out. I'm going to do 4 pi divided by 4, which is pi. Okay, then I'm going to go to the second interval, and I'm going to go up by pi, so that would be 2 pi, and then I'm going to go up by another pi, which would give me to 3 pi. So my 3 intervals are pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi. All right, so I'm going to mark those off so I can use them. I'm not going to show the whole cycle because I don't have the full graph for that. All right, so for cosine, I normally start at the term here, the A term, and I'm going to use the negative when I do this. So if I ask you what the amplitude is, you would tell me it's a positive value, but when you're setting up your graph, you want to use the -2. So I have the -2, and then I'm going to have the +1. So I'd go down to the -2, and then I'd go back up 1. So I really want to start at 1. And that's not because of the plus, I'm starting at -1, sorry. So go down to the -2. That's normally where you're going to look at. And then the +1 says, push me up 1 more. So that's where I'm going to start. All right. So first move, and then we're going to go up. Now we're going to use the amplitude, and we're going to go up and down by 2. Normally with cosine, I would go down, down, up, up. So now I'm going to go up, up, down, down. So I'm going to go up 2 again, and then I'm going to come back down 2, and I'm not going to see the full curve. All right, so then if you look at it, at 2 pi, we have half the curve. All right, if I'm going to go the other direction, this graph mirrors this graph on this side. So this graph's going to go like this over here. So it's symmetrical with the y-axis. So when I do this, I'm going to go up 2 again, and then back down 2. And that is my other side. And that would continue to flow like that too. But if you notice, this is a line of symmetry for the graph. So the cosine graph, it folds over perfectly on that green line. That would be my line of symmetry. The line is x equals 0. And sine doesn't have that same function. Sine is not symmetrical, but they're both continuous curves. The curve keeps going, so it keeps flowing, and it keeps going down and then it goes up. So it goes up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down. And that is my negative cosine curve.